Good evening, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to be kind of a fly by the seat of your pants video, and it's going out to Neil in the Plexaholics Facebook group. So he wanted to set up a headless Plex server and move files from his main computer to this headless one. So he set up CasaOS under Ubuntu. So I'm going to skip to his second paragraph that says, so I wanted to switch to a headless setup, which I did with Ubuntu server and CasaOS installed as a web-based UI. The brick wall I have run into is when I install Plex via CasaOS, I cannot find the external hard drive when I want to add the libraries to the new Plex server. How do I manage this? I'm sure it's an issue with permissions with the app itself, but I can't find where the setting would be for me to allow this. Any help would be greatly appreciated. All right, so he was using that external hard drive to copy files to, and I'm not sure exactly how he wants to do it under CasaOS, but let's just use that external hard drive as a permanent portable storage drive for CasaOS. But it may have come from the factory with the wrong file system to be used under Linux. Let's forget about Windows for a second. Windows can be his main PC that he collects media on, and then he can use his local area network to move files over to the headless Ubuntu / CasaOS install. But let's just make that portable drive only for CasaOS. Now, you see under my settings, I have a portable drive here. But right now I don't have it added to the Plex server that's stopped. Now I created this Ubuntu / CasaOS install on a little 11th gen Intel NUC, but I moved the drives over to a 9th gen HP system. And I could not access the USB drive. The libraries I created there would not work when I moved it. And that's because ownership was still under the other install. So this is what I had to do. And unfortunately, Neil, this will mean you'll have to back your Plex media up someplace else to prep the drive. But it's going to start with Ubuntu. So you'll need it connected to something with a keyboard and a monitor. And you're going to start up the disks program. I'm going to use an old flash drive formatted for a live boot of Mint 20.3. So I'm plugging that in now. And you see it right here, 16 gigabyte general U disk. So I want to hit the stop button to unmount the partition and make this larger. And if I look right here, this is the file system. I want to make that ext4 for Linux. So I'm just going to click on this, the last one, delete it. And of course, maybe that's not going to work on a flash drive. Let me just see what I can delete. Okay, so I've got this left. Now let me hit Format Partition, and I'm just going to name it what you might name it for this Ubuntu CasaOS install. So let me call it USB, no, let me call it Plex USB Media. I can't get that much. Do it like this, USB 1. So if you add more drives, you could have them all uniform like this. I'm not going to bother erasing it, and I'm going to click internal disk use with Linux systems only. So you can't plug this into a Windows system in the future to do your high-tech sneaker net. This is just going to stay on the Ubuntu install with CasaOS also installed over the top, because we'll use the network to copy files to it. So I'll hit next, format, and that's done. So I did this on my other install of Ubuntu and CasaOS. So that's already taken care of. I called it something similar, and I copied one small music library to it. So let's go to CasaOS. Again, this is running on this local IP address here, and that's my HP ProDesk system with a 9th Gen i5 in it. And this is my regular desktop on my upstairs computer running Pop! OS 22.04. All right, so you see this Seagate portable drive plugged in here. And if I click this storage gear icon, you see I have a system OS. It's a 500 gigabyte drive. I've got a bunch of space free, and I have this USB drive that has a lot of space free too. Don't need to do anything here with that. So Plex is not running. I have files here that I can open up, the CasaOS file manager. And if I go to root, and then I pick my home, and then click into my folder for my name. So this is the username you gave Ubuntu. And now if I look here and I look at media, I've already have this shared. Let me unshare this. And I'll click in. And this is media in the home folder on the boot drive for Ubuntu. And I have a lot of my regular public domain libraries that I use for different videos. So if I go back to home and Albert and all right, where am I looking? Let me go to root. Oh, I'm sorry. I no longer have to be here. I can go to this location, Plex USB Media. And now I've got a folder in that, so the volume name of this is Plex USB Media 1. So I was able to do a longer volume name than I could on the flash drive on this system. There's a folder called Media-USB, and right now there's one music library in it. So let me create a couple other library folders. New folder. Let me call this TV-libraries. And then a new, let's do a folder, not a file. Movie-libraries. Okay, so these two are empty, and only the music one has one, but we'll just leave it there for now. We're going to copy media afterwards. Let's get Plex aware of this extra path. So I can close down CasaOS's file manager. So this is grayed out, which means it's not running. If I click the three dots and go to settings, you'll see that I have the config files for the application container configured. They're stored in this structured data, app data, Plex config. And if you've done Unraid before, you know that all your Docker containers go into an app data folder. So this is looking at the media on the boot drive for Ubuntu. Home, Albert Media. And I've given that an alias of Plex Media Local. I want it to stand out like a sore thumb in Plex so I can tell the difference of a library structure on the local hard drive and one that might be on a first or second USB drive. So I'll click Add, then I'll click this funky outline of a square around a dot, And now I'm going to look at home, my name for the username of the Ubuntu install, and media. Nope, give me just a second. I've lost my way. Let me find it and I'll get right back to you. Okay, it didn't take me too long to find my way. So I'm going to click in now. And now instead of home, like I went for the local media on the Ubuntu boot drive, I'm going to find media, then my username. And now this is the volume name for that portable drive, Plex USB Media 1. If I click into it, now I see that first folder I created called media-USB. And now I see the different library structures I've created. Again, this is just a plain music library. And the other two are sort folders for a music library structure and TV library. So I can have multiple TV library folders or subfolders in this folder and multiple movie library folders here. So I'm going to select that. And now I'm going to call this something similar. This is the alias. And because I might have more than one USB drive, I'm going to call it Plex Media USB 1 to tell it apart from another large USB drive. Now I'll hit save, and this is going to start the Plex container. All right, so that's started. So let me go to my web app, and who knows where this is going to end up because I have multiple test servers going. Okay, so I'm in the CasaOS structure, and this is still set up from when it was installed on the other hardware, which means I've changed everything about the USB since then. So I need to get rid of this because I don't think this is going to connect to anything, because all the references were from the other Ubuntu install. So let's get rid of anything I set up in the first video. Okay, because this is a lot of public domain, let's double check that all the local library files work. Oh, this is an 8K version. I won't do that to that old system. Okay, so we have a connection there. Local movies, let's do Royal Wedding, that's public domain. So we have a connection for that original path. And then let's check Life with Elizabeth, Betty White's first kind of a local TV show out in California. There's only a few episodes available. They're public domain, and I found some. Okay, so we know that all works. So before we copy media over, let's check and see if that music library path works. And I know I haven't granted this test server remote access at this point. So let's add a music library. We'll call it USB 1, again, in case there's another music library on another path or another drive we might add. Well, actually, we can just call it USB because we can add multiple paths if we had music on another USB drive. So next, and I'll browse, and here's that alias that clearly tells us what it is because I made sure to name it unique. I can see the music library folder. I can see the music, which means Plex has permission, and I'm going to add that, and just voila, we have a music library. Now this is some public domain stuff too, so let me just play one song to prove that we have a connection. So that's all easy peasy. But again, the hard drive, if it was formatted in a way that Windows can see it, this isn't going to work as a permanently attached portable storage device for CasaOS installed on top of Ubuntu. All right, so now let's learn how to copy files across the network to either drive. And let me see, where am I? I've got a little scratch pad going here because I want to be able to not have to use my brain. Memory is a precious commodity. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to use the Files app of CasaOS. So let's do the USB first. I can simply click here, go into the main folder on this USB drive that I've labeled Plex USB Media 1, and I can see that structure. So let me back up. I want to share this. So I'll click these three dots, I'll click share, and this tells you how to share from a Windows or share to a Windows computer or to a Mac. So I'm just going to copy and paste this helpful info into this little cheat sheet document I've got going on. So then let's learn how to do it for the local storage on the Ubuntu NVMe drive. So again, files. This time I'm going to root, and I'm going to find home, then the username I installed Ubuntu under, and now I'm kind of in the root of that directory so I can find the media folder I created. And you know it's me because I always use lowercase for all my folder and subfolder names until I get to the Plex media level. So when you get inside a library, then you name it normally. So let me go back to home, get into Albert, and then I'm just going to click the three dots here, share that, and I'll copy this information into my scratch pad also. Well, let me make this a little bit bigger. Now, I don't run Windows. I'd have to take that HP that currently has this CasaOS install on it and shut it down and put a Windows disk in it to be able to show you under Windows. So just trust that this will work. This will work on my Pop! OS desktop, even though it's not Mac. All right, so I just copied that. And this will work for the local Ubuntu boot drive too, but we're not really concerned with that in this because Neil is looking to use the USB storage under CasaOS. All right, so this X will get me out of the file manager area. And, oh, I don't need to be in this. Sorry. I need my local file manager. All right, so my setup here is I'm on my older Synology NAS in the left pane. I'm in a test movie library, and I've got some dummy files here named to represent Harry Potter movies. And let me just fix this up first. Let me run this through FileBot so they've got better names, because I cannot show a video on any subject without bringing FileBot into it because it's a Plex server's best friend. It's like a loyal sheepdog. And I've got plenty of FileBot videos to show you how to do just what I did. So I upgraded the folder names to include the TMDB source ID, and I added that to the file name with some media characteristics. All right, so this is what we're going to test once we connect. So I'm just at my home under this Linux desktop. I'm going to other locations, and down here I can enter a server address, so I'll paste that in and hit connect. And I'm just going to connect as anonymous because there's no there's no permission set for a simple install of CasaOS under Ubuntu, and I wouldn't know how to set that up right now. So I'll just do anonymous. All right, so I see that structure. So let's create a main movie library, and we'll call it movie-main. And let's paste in, well, I gotta copy them first. Let's copy these and paste them in. So now let's create a TV show library here. Let's create a couple of them. We'll call it TV-Kids and TV-Main. Okay, so I'm renaming and creating folders from my Linux desktop remotely on the USB hard drive that's plugged into the Ubuntu CasaOS install. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's do the TV. Let's back up here. All right, so I'm just going to copy this. It shouldn't take too long. They're short, real episodes. Let me copy that, and I'll copy it into the kids folder. So that's not taking too long. So then let's go over here and let's get this Life with Elizabeth. I'll copy that and I'll paste it into here. Okay, so let's back up and let's get into a movie library, movie main. I have these tests. Let's get one real public domain movie too. All right, so this is my default public domain example for folder structure. One shared media folder called media, and then I create sort folders for everything but a music library because chances are you're not going to have multiple music libraries. So the movie-library sort folder holds actual Plex movie library structure. So let's grab something here. The Brain That Wouldn't Die, I have 2 versions of that, so I don't want to copy that. Blue Steel is only 830 megabits, so we'll copy this real movie. And again, it's public domain. Everything else is copied. And let's see how fast this is going across my network. As it gets about halfway through, so 55.9 seconds. If that wasn't a 9th gen processor and it wasn't coming from my slower Synology NAS, that might have been much higher than that, but it didn't take long. Okay, so we're really done with that. Let's move back to CasaOS before we move into Plex. So let's go to the file manager again. Click into Plex USB Media, that's the volume name. Click into the Media USB, and let's look at our movie libraries. Everything we copied across the network shows up in CasaOS. I forget, you can't back up like I've been doing in my regular Linux desktop. So I have to click this to then get into the TV folder, and you can see we have that media here. So, hunky-dory. And if we edit the Plex container one more time, I'm not going to stop it. We've already added the path so that Plex can see that. We've proved it with a music library. So the last thing to do is to go into the Plex web app again. And now we're going to create one movie library and 2 TV show libraries pointing to the USB media. So I'm just going to name them kind of simply. add library, movie, USB. And now again, I don't have to say USB 1 to match the USB 1 drive, because as I add more USB media, I can point to multiple folders. And I'll show that before I move on to the TV libraries. So I'll browse. Again, this beautifully descriptive alias to the real path. So I click that. Now I see my movie library sort folder. I see the main library, and I see the media in it. I like to always show the advanced options, which is to enable the automatic collections to be created that are listed at TMDB, and I don't want a collection until I have at least 2 movies, and add library. So if I wanted to add another path to it, I could click the add path and then add another path, and I could actually include a path back to the local structure too if I wanted. So that's why I'm not naming these to much more descriptive than USB, because I can point this library at multiple USB drives added to the Ubuntu CasaOS install. Okay, so let's add 2 TV show libraries. We'll just call this TV shows because it will be the main one. So again, the alias for the USB, the TV library sort folder, and the main library add. Now I name everything for a TV series from TVDB. So I'm going into the advanced settings and I'm changing the episode ordering to the TVDB. Add. Now let's add that kids TV show library. And again, I'll browse. I'll pick the obvious alias, the TV library sort folder, the kids TV library folder structure, add. And again, because I name everything from TVDB, I'll change that in the advanced settings. All right, so let's check on our movie. Let me play this. And again, it's a dummy file.
Good evening, Phil.
Plays no problem. This is a real public domain movie. And that starts up. So let's check the... Oh, let me fix this. Let me edit the library. Check the folder. So this is going to USB. I should have named this TV shows USB. And I should have named this. Check the path. USB 2. I should have named this TV shows USB kids to make it really clear what we're doing here. All right, so renaming the library doesn't affect the path, so I'll go into this library mode, into the show. And the first episode I have is episode 14. And it plays without an issue. So now we'll check the last library out, which is the USB Kids TV show library. And this is one of the reasons I only name from from TVDB. The Looney Tunes is obviously not a real TV show, it's a virtual one. But this virtual TV show is only listed at TVDB because they're less restrictive than TMDB that would never allow this. So these are all old movie shorts, cartoons before a movie, going back to 1929 for the first episode. And these are all public domain, the ones I have here. At least I think they're public domain. Let's just play just that much of it. So TVDB has a lot of virtual series. The Tom and Jerry original cartoons started in the 40s, and they were movie shorts too. So there's, instead of season 01, season 02, season 03, the listing at TVDB is season space 1940, season space 1950, season space 1960, And that's how you would create the season folders to name those old movie shorts as if they were a virtual TV series. So TVDB is the cat's ass, in my opinion. So basically, that's it. You want to add more media? You transfer it across the network from whatever computer you're working on. And I actually did it from my older Synology NAS and not my local hard drive, but I could do that also because I have a test media install here. So let's add something else to the main TV show library. Let me see which one's smaller. 2.8 gigabytes. All right, so that's 6.6 gigabytes. Let me copy this. And now again, this pane, this tab, is on the other Ubuntu installed with CasaOS. So let's back up to the TV library sort folder, to the main folder, and I'll Control V to paste it in. And we see it's copying. 34 seconds left. So let's get into the USB. Oh, you see it's already scanning because I've got automatic scanning turned on, and it's bringing the Lucy show right in as it's copying over. So, Neil, I hope this is helpful to you. But again, I could not use the USB drive that I had set up for Ubuntu installed on my 11th gen NUC until I basically wiped the partition and started fresh. There's probably some way to change the permissions, but I've used Linux a long time, and even that kind of stuff is hard for me, and it was just easier to start fresh because I knew that would work. And really, it just uses disks, and Ubuntu has that installed by default. So again, 16 gigabyte drive, and you have to stop it, and you just hit the minus. So I don't have anything on this. Let's refresh. Well, actually, let's do it this way. Let's unplug it and plug it back in. All right, so it knows it is Plex USB, and when I did that, it shows up as the ext4 extension. And now, let me do this. I could copy a file to it or create a folder, easy peasy. All right, so any questions, feel free to ask away. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to figure it out for you. But even I don't like tackling Linux permission issues. So unfortunately, it may mean backing up your USB drive and reformatting it to then make it a permanent storage device under CasaOS that's installed on top of Ubuntu. And this is a long video, but thank you for watching.